Chapter 26. The Dursleys. To say the ride back to the Dursleys was tense was an understatement to beat out all understatements. Vernon had about flipped shit when Harry moved up to him. The man hadn't believed him at first until he saw the scar. Vernon had said nothing until they got into the car and well away from King's Cross. Once they were on their way to Surrey is when Vernon let loose. Sephiroth had gotten very good at tuning Hojo out during his little ranting during lab visits. Vernon was not much harder. "Boy, are you listening to me?" Turning away from the window, Sephiroth's cat-slit eyes looked up to the rearview mirror where he could see Vernon's eyes looking at him. A silver brow rose in silent question. His lips remained firmly sealed. He would not grace Vernon with his voice if he did not need to. "You will remove those freak contacts before we get back to the house, and you will watch your tongue with your aunt this time." Oh fucking great, Marge was there as well. A small evil smirk crossed his face as he turned away. Oh, he hoped she got in on his father while he was there. Vincent would put the fear of God in her. "Do you understand me, boy? These are not contacts, so I have no way of possibly removing them. As to Marge, well, she better watch her own tongue or else she may find herself severely lacking one." He turned his eyes meeting Vernon's once more, their depth glowing brighter as he intentionally pushed Mako up into his eyes. Giving his uncle a truly evil smile, he turned away once more, going to staring out the car window. Vernon shivered seeing those eyes. He had no idea what kind of freak Harry had become, but there was something about him that set his teeth on edge. Harry looked completely different, while he still looked slightly like the boy that had disappeared to God knows where over the summer. Many of the features had changed. His eyes and hair were the biggest and the most disturbing. He honestly didn't believe the eyes were real. He would get the boy to remove the contacts whether he wanted to or not. Feeling something vibrating down his leg, Sephiroth reached into his duster jacket pocket. Yeah, he had stolen Genesis' old duster. Pulling out the new cell phone Genesis had bought them all, he smiled seeing the name flashing on the screen. Flipping it open, he put it up to his ear. "Genesis. Couldn't wait to talk to me, huh?" He smiled more, hearing Genesis' soft laughter from the other side of the phone. "Did the triplets and Lazard get to Padfoot all right?" "Huh. Well, Kadaj hasn't always been the most mentally stable. Just make sure he doesn't decapitate anyone. Lazard should be enough to handle them. I mean, he was able to handle you and me when we got into tussles, and we used to destroy the soldier floor." He glanced up to the review mirror seeing Vernon was naturally listening in. "Huh? Yeah, I know, General." He rolled his eyes seeing Genesis was going Mother Chocobo on him. "General. Stop pulling an Angel." "Yes, you're being a Mother Chocobo right now. Don't worry, I have all the materia you gave me including Bahamut Divine, and I have Massa Moon. I have also regained control of Heartless Angel. Anyone tries to attack me, they will be dead well before they realize they are fucking with the wrong person." He smirked, turning back to looking out the window. "I know, Genesis, but I won't just lay down and take it up the ass. I will kill anyone that tries to fuck with me." Genesis laughed, knowing exactly what Sephiroth was saying. This. He must have still be in the car with that bastard uncle of his. "All right, love, just be careful." Sephiroth smirked, situating himself better in the back seat. They still had close to a half hour till they reached Surrey. Flipping through his phone, he dialed Tseng to make sure he got back to the States all right with Cloud. They had all agreed, just like with the triplets and Lazard, that Tseng would not return home. His mother was likely to flip shit seeing what her son had become. Rufus had insisted that even though his parents appeared evil, they were actually very nice behind closed doors. "Hey boss man, yeah, I'm with him. I'll be fine. Did you get to the States all right?" "That's good. Enjoy your vacation with your husband. I'll see you back after school." Flipping the phone shut, he sighed, closing his eyes. Was this hell 2 weeks over yet? Feeling the car slowing down, Sephiroth pulled his lids open. He was tired and just wanted to go curl up on the bed he knew was waiting for him. Maybe if he was lucky he could just sleep the whole damn Christmas break away. Sitting up a little straighter, he felt a sneer pulling at his lips and quickly squished that impulse. Privet Drive rolled past them, immaculate houses all looking the same under a thin blanket of snow. If it wasn't for the large house numbers, it would be impossible to tell one from another. Seeing a group of 5 walking down the street, a sneer did manage to cross Sephiroth's face. The memories of the bullying from this life surfacing once more. When he was a child in Shinra, no one had dared to bully him. Any that did had a habit of ending up dead or severely injured. This group would learn very quickly Sephiroth was the wrong person to pick on. Turning away from the window, he pulled his seatbelt off as they drew into the driveway of number 4. Before the car was even fully stopped, Sephiroth was already stepping out and towards the back of the car. He wanted his trunk so he could go up and hide in his hellhole of a room and get the next 5 days over with. Yes, he was only staying there a few days, just enough to give the ministry enough time to say he was there. He waited patiently by the trunk for the fat bastard he was now dubbing Shinra Jr. to get out of the car. Pulling his overly fat ass out of the driver's seat, Vernon waddled over to the trunk. Vernon now had to look up at the boy as he had grown several inches since the summer. "I said you need to remove those contacts, boy." Sighing softly, Sephiroth rolled his eyes skyward, not caring if Vernon saw it or not. "I told you they are not contacts. They became like this in September, as did my hair." He motioned to the silver hair and turned back to the trunk. "I would like my trunk now, Vernon. I do not believe you wish to remain out in the cold any longer than I do." He raised a brow in silent inquiry. "I can always open the trunk myself, but that would damage your car and I do not believe you would want that." "Not until you remove the contacts." Clenching his jaws, Sephiroth turned back to the trunk of the car. Slipping his long fingers under the seam between the bumper and trunk, he gripped the lid and ripped up with his soldier strength. The latch shattered, sending the truck lid slamming back into the window. Seng's truck had a lot more resistance to it. Quality has sure gone to shit over the years. Grabbing his trunk, he ignored his red-faced uncle and wheeled the trunk into the house. Walking in, he pulled a face. He forgot how overboard his aunt went when it came to decorating for Christmas. He actually liked the way Genesis used to decorate. Yes, they had a holiday similar to Christmas back in Midgar. "Vernon, is that you?" Petunia moved out of the living room, her whole body going ramrod stiff as she caught sight of Sephiroth. "Petunia," Sephiroth said, giving her a small bow before dragging his trunk up the stairs. "Harry?" she asked, moving up to the stairs and looked up at him. Yes. I know I look different now. Excuse me, I'm tired and wish to place my things away before I am forced to ... He could hear Marge moving around in the living room along with that horrid bulldog of hers, Ripper. Turning, he headed back up the stairs. He had just managed to reach the top when he heard Vernon come in, sputtering. "Boy. Get down here now." Sighing, Sephiroth set his trunk down and slowly moved down the stairs, but stayed several stairs up from where Vernon was standing. "I do have a name, Vernon. Please remember to use it when addressing me." He watched in satisfaction as Vernon started to sputter more, his face turning a horrid purple color. "Boy, don't you dare talk to me like..." Vernon froze as those cat-slit acid green eyes were now mere inches away from his own, their depth burning with a bright fire and hatred. "Or what, Vernon?" His voice had dropped to a very deadly purr. "You'll kick me out? I plan on being gone in 5 days. This is just a little show to play up to the ministry. If it was my choice, I would never see your hideous face again. You stay out of my way and I will stay out of yours." He tilted his head to the side, flashing a very deadly smile, looking so much like the demon of Wutai. "Shall we? I would hate to have to break my killing cherry on your fat ass. I am saving that for someone much more worthy of my killing virginity." Seeing he had rendered both Petunia and Vernon speechless, he turned and moved back up to his room. Grabbing his trunk, he shut the door gently behind him and smiled at the figure sitting on the bed. "How was that, Dad?" Shaking his head, Vincent stood up and moved over to his only child, gently setting a hand on his head. "Still need to work on threatening people, but that was good for a soldier." We will get you up to Turk. For the most part everyone left him alone that day. It wasn't until dinner that anyone dared to come anywhere near his room. Looking over to where his father was curled up asleep in wolf form, Sephiroth moved over to the door. Opening it, he blinked, seeing a pug-faced girl standing there. He recognized her from his elementary school days. She was a young girl that lived a few blocks over. She had always pined after Dudley and his gang. "Yes?" Sephiroth asked, looking down at the girl. "Dinner is done. Harry, right?" He nodded, knowing this girl didn't normally pay any attention to him. Motioning for her to move, he shut the door, making sure it was securely latched. Hopefully Dudley wouldn't be stupid enough to try and break in. Not with his Turk father in there. Walking down the hall, he found himself looking over feeling eyes watching him. "Can I help you?" The young girl, who he recognized as Piers Polka's sister, shook her head, still staring at him. "Just the first time I have seen you since primary school. You look different." Sephiroth greatly resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Well, she was not the sharpest blade in the Turk's weapon vault. "I'm not 8 anymore, if that helps." He couldn't help it, he was sarcastic by nature. Moving down into the kitchen, he didn't pay anyone a single ounce of attention, simply sat down at the chair he knew was his. He did note through that the table felt a little bit more crowded. The added fat of the snot-nosed Marge and Piers plus his sister added to the claustrophobic feel of the table. "Dude, Harry, is that you? Well, so much for a quick quiet dinner." Glancing up, he looked at his shell-shocked cousin. "No. I'm some random stranger with green eyes, a scar on my forehead that just happened to wander in and sit down to eat with you fine folks." He turned back to his food. He would need to have his father go out and get him more. This tiny little bit the Dursleys felt the generosity to feed him would not sustain him at all. With the Mako enhancements, all soldier underwent it up their metabolism to the point they needed to eat either 3 huge meals a day or several normal-sized meals a day. If he didn't, his body would start burning through his muscles, as he didn't have any fat on his body. That was something he could not afford to have happen. At all. Have you noticed the youth of today had no sense of style? They wear the strangest clothes. Dye their hair the strangest colors and wear unnatural contacts. Setting his fork down, Sephiroth leveled Marge with a blank look. "If you have a problem with me, Marge, do not try and disguise it as small talk. Say it to me directly, like you actually have a set." "Boy," Vernon growled, but Sephiroth ignored him. "So tell me, Marge, are we going to spend all Christmas vacation listening to you prattle on about how my father must have been an unemployed drunkard even though you never once met the man? Comparing me and my mother to one of your poor excuses you call dogs, and everything else your tiny little child like mind can come up with to try and belittle me." He sent her a pleasant smile and turned back to his food, effectively shutting her out as she started to sputter and insult him. Oh, he probably just made the situation 100 times worse, but he didn't care. He wasn't going to put up with her bitching and moaning about his parents. While he only had stories about Lily and James, he knew his father and knew of his scientist mother. Finishing his meal in record time really wasn't that hard for a soldier to finish that meager meal quickly. "While this conversation has been riveting, I must retire. I just wish to inform you that my friend Genesis will be showing up here at 0800 to assist me in training. Please try and behave yourself. He doesn't exactly have the best temper on the planet when it comes to rude people." Sweeping from the room, he smiled, seeing Vincent already standing up at the top of the stairs with takeout for them both. "Dad, you're a lifesaver." The next morning he was up by 7, dressed in a pair of soldier training pants he had transfigured for himself and Masamune. Waiting till about 7:40, he pushed himself off the bed, grabbing Masamune by the hilt, and headed down to the kitchen to get one of the many energy drinks he had stashed at the back of the crisper last night. Stopping about halfway down, he could hear that almost everyone was awake. Cursing slightly, he continued down. So much for stealing breakfast. He would just have to beg Genesis to take them out after training and get something. At least he had his energy drinks. Ducking into the kitchen, he ignored the shocked gasps from the women. He was sure at least a couple of them were from the massive 7-foot sword he had clutched in his left hand. The higher pitched was probably because he was bare-chest. Setting Masamune up against the counters, he ducked into the fridge, happy to see his energy drinks were still there. Heads would seriously start to roll if they were gone. Pulling all the ones he set in there to cool out, he set 7 of the 8 down on the counter and leaned back against them. "Boy, what is that thing?" Vernon sputtered, his beady eyes taking in Masamune. Masamune ... It's a Utanese Nodaki, beautiful isn't she? One of a kind. Popping open the first can, he tilted his head back, downing the substance. His whole body instantly relaxed, tasting that beautiful liquid crack sliding down his throat. "Who in their right mind gave you a sword, boy?" Marge said, her own eyes taking in the massive sword. Finishing off the can, Sephiroth effortlessly crushed it and tossed it into the trash. "Blame Hojo. He's the one that insisted I be trained." He popped open a second can and started to chug it. "Utanese, is that the same thing as Japanese?" He couldn't help it, he snorted, and quite loud too. "Not too bright is she?" he muttered, turning to his third can. Oh, he was done playing 20 questions. Glancing down to his watch, he smiled and glanced to the door separating the kitchen from the hallway. He slowly counted down in his head. Right at 1 the doorbell rang. "Come on in, Genesis," he called out, not moving from his spot against the counter. "Don't go inviting one of you into our house," Vernon snarled. "One of you what?" Vernon froze and slowly glanced behind him, seeing brilliant glowing pale blue eyes looking down at him. "This is my friend Genesis Rhapsodos."
I'm glad you enjoyed that video/gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!